Victoria could not imagine her life without work. She started making money while she was still in school. In 10th grade, her mother informed her that she was grown up now, and it was time to buy her own things. She found a part-time job. Her mother's friend rented a chair in a hairdressing salon near the school, and Victoria was hired as an assistant by this friend. First, she was responsible for washing the hair, then cutting, and eventually she was even allowed to do simple coloring. The pay was not particularly good, but she gained invaluable experience and learned everything she needed. Therefore, there was no question for Victoria that she would continue to develop her skills and not only work as a hairdresser, but also become a true hairstylist. There were no good beauty salons in their hometown, and it was believed that the women would not pay too much for their skills. But it turned out differently. Victoria had a natural talent. She was able to cut so successfully that every woman became a beauty. She was booked 1 month in advance. The talented girl was known in the small town as a miracle performer. When the owner of the salon in which Victoria worked noticed this, she paid her to participate in further training courses. Victoria learned complex coloring techniques and other hair treatments that were not available in her city and became the most sought-after master. People traveled from the whole area to her, offered her to work overtime, work at home, paid for her trip. Every kind of money to make her golden hands work wonders. Victoria realized that it was time to move on and decided to open her first salon. Victoria's history could have been like a Cinderella story if there hadn't been a but. There was no prince in her life that made her life appear like a fairy tale. Victoria earned everything she had by her own effort. With hard work and talent, she reached unexpected heights in a provincial city where nobody believed that a simple haircut could bring in as much as it did in large cities. But the women went there and were not scared. Victoria soon opened her first cosmetic studio, and 3 years later she already had an entire network of hairdressing salons, ranging from economy to luxury class, which the wealthiest residents of the city attended. Victoria earned her own apartment, helped her mother, and was happy that her life was good. And then she met Mason. A good-looking man came to her salon to have his hair cut, and they hit it off right away. It turned out that he worked in a neighboring town for a large chain of grocery stores. He came to his hometown, Victoria, to work there. He felt so comfortable there that he decided to stay. Victoria didn't mind. "Why do you have to rent an apartment? Come and live with me," she said. Mason did not think about it. He met his future mother-in-law, bought a ring, and made Victoria a marriage proposal. Victoria said yes. She felt very fortunate to have a job she loved, a thriving company, and a good match at the right time. Victoria had little time to focus on her personal life and was worried about remaining unmarried. And Mason wasn't a bad choice to fulfill her needs. Sure, he earned less than Victoria, but he was capable of fixing a faucet or hammering a nail. And most importantly, the question of marriage was settled, and her mother stopped pressuring her and assuming that she was being taken away from her while she was contemplating. They lived well. Victoria brought in money, and Mason not only contributed to the business, but also provided for the family's food needs. The business generated a good income, and Victoria was able to dedicate herself to her family briefly when she became pregnant. Mason accepted the news about the growth. He understood that children are born in a marriage and was ready. But he did not find great love for his daughter. Nothing had changed in his life. And Victoria realized that everyday life and child rearing were not for them. Her soul pulled it back into the salon. At the family meeting, it was decided that they should go to work and to look after their granddaughter by her grandmother. As soon as Stella was 6 months old, Victoria started working again. And when she was 1 year old, she transferred her daughter to her mother completely and paid her salary. Everyone was happy. The daughter grew up. The grandmother was in the shop. Victoria opened new salons in the region, and Mason went to work so as not to sit at home. So it went on for 18 years. The daughter ended the school, went to the university, and moved to St. Petersburg. The mother-in-law fell ill and died soon after, and Victoria slept. Your business had reached a level where it was no longer necessary to actively participate in the processes. It was possible not to go to work at all. It was a time in her life when it was time to change something. Maybe we should both go? What? What are we? Mold in the glass? Said Mason and looked at his wife. Why, you could. I only thought that I would take a risk and want to open a few express hair salons in a large city. We have to expand, enlarge ourselves, come to the next level. Are you not afraid of the competition? No, I am no longer afraid of anything. Should we go to Peter? No, I would rather go to Moscow. It's kind of closer to my heart, and the climate is better. It was decided to sell the apartment and purchase a new one for a more comfortable living situation rather than renting. Victoria had no doubt about her husband. They had been living together for 20 years, and there were no signs of a separation. Surprisingly, Victoria had always been lucky in business. Her business always seemed to thrive. Despite the presence of many hairdressing salons in the city, Victoria managed to establish herself there, and her network began to grow. Victoria even considered buying an apartment not only for herself, but also for her daughter, if finances allowed. However, Stella did not wait for the gift. She started dating Lucas, a classmate, and it didn't take long to discover that she was pregnant. Victoria was not happy about the sudden news. She believed that children should be born a little later after completing her training. But Stella had a different opinion. We are getting married. That is out of the question, she said. Victoria accepted it. She arranged a nice wedding for the lovers, paid a trip to the sea, and continued to work. But Mason couldn't settle in the new city. Walking, and he was not taken with a large salary. Basically, I don't have to work. You make good money, and I can do the household, he said. Okay, agreed Victoria. She knew that her husband liked to sleep before dinner to be free and to live at her own. Victoria, on the other hand, couldn't sit still. The perpetuum mobile, and this nickname really fit her. She hadn't been on vacation for so many years that she couldn't even remember when that was. Therefore, her daughter's request was like a thunderbolt. Mom, my husband, and I thought we would bring our granddaughter to you. We don't have time to take care of her. Lucas is studying, I'm also studying, and you have your life under control. You can afford to rest, to relax, Victoria's daughter said. Victoria gasped. You don't even have a baby yet, and you're already having such thoughts. The idea of peace was associated with retirement, and Victoria was eager to get there. Well, not immediately, of course, but I will take care of her myself for a while. Maybe you and your father could move to St. Petersburg to help us? No, Stella, I am not doing so well here that I can't leave everything behind. If you need help, you can come to us. But I'll tell you right away that I will only help you financially. I will not retire so soon. My father is unemployed at the moment. He is quite able to take care of his granddaughter when you trust him. Then we changed to another university, and so it was decided. Stella and Lucas began to plan their move to Moscow. They decided to move together for the first time. Victoria planned to buy an apartment for her daughter, but it was decided that her daughter and her son-in-law should live with her parents for the last months of her pregnancy. Stella moved in earlier, and a week later her daughter and son-in-law came. But then the unexpected happened. The son-in-law not only brought a suitcase with him, he didn't come alone either. Nova has no place to stay. She will stay with you for a while. That doesn't matter to you, right? He asked and brought his younger sister to the house of his mother-in-law. Victoria had only seen her brother-in-law's sister at the wedding. At that time, the modest 17-year-old girl appeared to her like a child. And suddenly it turned out that she became grown up very quickly and wanted to study at the Moscow University. And since her brother and his wife decided to move, there was the opportunity to go with them and settle in the capital. It's a large apartment, we will clean up, said Stella, without waiting for her mother's consent. How long will Nova stay with us? Asked Victoria, until she has a job and can rent an apartment. And what about studying? Real estate prices in the capital are not cheap. If you need something, you can set it, right, Stella? She can do anything you say. Lucas agreed. They took you as a girl. They taught you everything. The daughter reminded her mother of her success story. I had no way out. The times were different. And today, the young people have to learn first, said Victoria. She didn't like the thought of doing business. Nevertheless, her conscience could not allow her to put the uninvited guest at the door. They agreed that her brother-in-law's sister stayed with her for a few weeks, and that she would look for work at that time. If things didn't go according to plan, it would withdraw. Stella and Lucas had been assigned the guest room, and Nova had settled in the hallway. Quiet and inconspicuous, she didn't bother her hosts. Victoria was fully deepened and had no time to take care of her guest. Mason, on the other hand, had to change his habits and, based on the fact that he was at home, spent a lot of time with his daughter, his son-in-law, and sister. The lifestyle of the young people and the father was remarkably different. At first, he didn't like that. But then he got a taste and offered himself to show the children the city, take them with him on errands, or go for a walk with them. Victoria, finish my shirt, he said one evening to his wife. You decided to go to the interview? Victoria was surprised. No, we're going to a musical. Where? Asked Victoria. To the theater, a new piece. How exciting! When do we go to the musical? No, darling, you don't understand. We're going to 4. There was an unpleasant break. My daughter bought tickets, but her friend couldn't come. So she suggested that I would come along because the tickets were going to waste anyway. Shouldn't I have offered that? You have a lot to do. I bet you have an appointment tomorrow at 6 p.m. Yes, I have an appointment. In contrast to you, I work and eat alone for 5 people. Victoria was annoyed by her family. She would also like to go to the theater or a concert. She has not been invited to the cinema in a long time. You don't have to work. Nobody forces you. You chose it yourself, said her husband. Victoria did not answer. She took a shirt out of the wardrobe and nodded to the iron. Do you go to the theater? No. Good. Then you have to sew your clothes yourself. I guess I'm the man in our family. And a man shouldn't iron shirts. That evening, Victoria and Mason had their first argument, and yet he went to the musical. And Victoria went to work. Nothing had changed, only the relationship had become colder. Victoria no longer thought about Nova at all. The gray mouse lived calmly in her apartment and went to interviews every now and then. At dinner, she suddenly realized that finding a job without experience was very difficult. They don't hire me anywhere. Even waiters require experience, said Nova. Listen, I had an idea. Stella suddenly spoke up. Everyone looked at her. Even Victoria was distracted from her diary. I will soon have a baby, and of course, the baby will need a nanny, said Stella, Victoria's daughter, during lunch. She looked at her mother and waited for her reaction. Stella and her husband had recently moved in with her mother, and also brought along her sister-in-law, Nova, to settle down in Moscow. But the capital was not ready to accept the young provincial. Nobody wanted to hire her without experience, so Nova stayed at home and was practically supported by a stranger, her brother's mother-in-law. Do you want my sister to be the nanny for our baby? Lucas, Stella's husband, clarified her. Yes, we will hire someone anyway. I'm at school. Mama immediately said that she would not give up her job because of the grandchildren, and I would not entrust a baby to Dad. There was silence at the table. So you say that I have to keep a nanny for your baby just because you don't want to take responsibility for him yourself? Victoria was shocked by her daughter's words. What do you mean by support? Of course you will have to pay them. You promised that you will help financially. You will do that too. Not to an outsider, but to a relative. We connect the business with the pleasant, so to speak, and the nanny is there and the money is in the family. And the apartment that Nova does not have to rent, and the question of a nanny will be solved. How cool is that? Everyone looked at Victoria to see what she would say. You have a stupid idea. I'm sorry, but I have to go to work. We'll talk later. She got up from the table. Nova could not be a good nanny because of her age, and she had to study, not open up the children of other people. and Victoria had no intention of living with her. Although Nova tried to be inconspicuous, Victoria found that she had quickly turned into a young woman from an angular teenager. Victoria knew exactly how difficult it was for a naive girl to resist the temptations of the big city. Victoria didn't want a young mother with a baby on her neck. She already supported everyone and not only bought food, but also basic things like socks for her brother-in-law. Lucas and his sister lived off the shelf and did not intend to work and think about the future, and Stella was sure that her mother would help everyone because she had promised it. This began to burden Victoria, and the unexpected conversation made her look at the situation from a different perspective. When Victoria used to return to the kitchen to prepare dinner and suddenly heard the door opened, in her reflection, she saw that Nova had entered the hallway, followed by Mason, Victoria's husband. The reserved Nova was very happy and didn't look at all as she did at family meals. "Doesn't that look good?" She turned in front of the mirror. "Actually very good. It suits you. You could have taken a skirt." "He's too short," Nova smiled. "What do you have to hide? Your legs extend to your ears. A young, beautiful body." Victoria looked at her legs and almost cried before frustration. When she bought shorts, Mason was fond of his wife and said she should wear pants at her age. "You are almost a grandmother." "Where do you want that?" he said. Victoria was very angry about her husband, but gave up the shorts. And now it turned out that she had a young body and legs over her ears, and her husband went shopping with her without shame and conscience and praised her figure. "Hello," she called in her apron and attracted attention. Nova immediately looked away, and Mason seemed to be surprised. "Are you already home?" "Yes. Why? Do I have to ask for permission now, so that I don't interfere with the others in my own apartment?" "No, of course not. What's for dinner?" Mason changed the topic. "Whatever Nova does." "It turned out that I am the horse and bull in our family. I am the woman and the man. Isn't that a lot of work for me alone?" "I will go. There was a chicken in the fridge. I will fry it," whispered Nova. "The chicken was eaten yesterday. I used it for the pilaf. Did you forget that? Or did you focus on something else?" Victoria has focused on something else. "What do you really do? Don't take the girl. Let her rest," her husband tried to intervene. "And why? Because you bought a new dress with my money. Maybe I shouldn't say anything." Very practical. She went away in the morning, came back in the evening. Dinner is ready. The money is on the menu. The house is cleaned. Everyone is full and goes back to work so as not to disturb. Victoria what? You go to work tomorrow. I don't care where you go. I'm fed up with you. And you, Nova, don't think that I pay you to eat with my husband at my expense, drink, and go to the theater. I don't want a nanny for my husband. And my daughter should take care of her child. You have a good job, don't you? Victoria continued and continued, until she realized that she was exhausted. Her perpetuum mobile had failed. She went into her room and cried until morning. Mason didn't come into the bedroom that night. He slept in the kitchen. However, their words had the desired effect. In the morning, she heard Nova packed. "And where are you going?" asked Mason. "I'll think of something. I'm going to my parents." "Do you want me to go to the train station? I can get there myself." The daughter and son-in-law slept and didn't notice anything. But when they realized that their sister-in-law was gone, they made a scene. "How did this happen? Did you kick her out?" Stella scolded. "And who will help me now? What kind of mother are you? Grandma allowed me to stay with her, gave you the opportunity to live your life the way you want, and all I get from you is negativity. Don't you like it? The door is in that direction. You can follow," said Victoria coldly. "We are already going. Don't worry. I would not have thought that you would do that to your daughter the eve of the birth," said the son-in-law disapprovingly. Victoria was disappointed. She was hoping for gratitude, but all she got were accusations. "Where will you go?" she wondered. Despite the insult, she was still concerned about her daughter's condition. Her hysteria could be attributed to hormones. "It's none of your concern," said Stella. In reality, she had no one apart from her mother and father. Only Luca's parents, who lived somewhere on the outskirts of Peter in a one-room apartment. "Fine, go. I wish you a safe trip," said Victoria. She realized that the children had grown up, but not become wiser. When Victoria was alone with her husband, Mason said nothing. He put on his jacket and went to the door. "Are you also going?" "I was looking for a job," he said. Her husband came home in the late afternoon and went off Victoria. She even thought he had actually found a job, but it turned out that he didn't work in the right place. When Victoria's card was burdened with the hotel bill, she recognized what was going on and grabbed her husband's things. Victoria was left alone. It was difficult to put into words how she felt, but after a while Mason returned, sad and aged. "Why did he come? Did you get out of the money?" she asked. "Nova is pregnant." "Why do you care? I warned you that she would surprise her parents. Fortunately, she has her own family. Let them decide." "Talk to them, Victoria, please. You are an authority." "With regard to what? She doesn't understand that. Let her keep the baby." "Listen, what I don't understand is, do you want to kid me up now? Your parents don't want her to have a baby. They called me an old billy goat. Can you believe that? I am really hurt. I'm still young." Victoria's cup fell out of her hand and broke. She understood why her husband came. He wanted Victoria to put in a good word for him with her in-laws. Her husband had a child with his sister-in-law while Victoria had been unsuspecting and kept her. Victoria became dizzy. "Out, Mason. And if you ask me, your parents are right. You are an old billy goat. You can't give birth to a child. You do not understand. It is love. I'm finally in love. And I want this baby. It's not like 20 years ago. You and I never loved each other. It was a purpose. You understand that, right?" "No, Mason, I don't understand that. You have just traded your conscience and a happy life for a young body. What did you lack? Don't answer that. Go." Victoria pointed to the door, and after she made sure he was gone, she immediately blocked all of his cards. Why hadn't she done it earlier, she wondered. She didn't know how long Nova Mason had been seducing her. But the worst thing was that Stella probably knew about their relationship. She knew and stayed silent. A local daughter covering up her father's lover in her mother's house. When Stella called after a while, Victoria didn't answer. She needed to be alone with herself. Maybe she should finally go on vacation and get away from everyone. And so she did. Victoria purchased the most expensive trip and flew to a warm island in the middle of the ocean. Surprisingly, she had no guilty conscience. Maybe her daughter had a baby and wanted to announce it, but she didn't feel like talking to anyone. Victoria switched off her phone and spent a month on the island to recover from the shards and realize that life was not over. She still had a future, and that future could be bright. When she came home, Mason was waiting for her in the entrance. He didn't want a divorce, but Victoria insisted on it. Good lawyers and money were on Victoria's side, so she was not afraid of the consequences. But the rejected Romeo couldn't get over the fact that his Julia chose someone else. Nova obeyed her parents and left the old Bach for a new, younger, and more promising. Victoria didn't know where she had found him. Nova never went to school. She liked to be a homemaker, and she was pretty good at it. In a quiet abyss, that was her. Mason did not make it to share. His weak heart gave up because of sheer worries and unfortunate love, and so the process did not take place. Victoria gave her apartment to her daughter, but Stella did not appreciate the gift. She began to request financial support from her mother and did not allow her grandmother to see her granddaughter often. However, Victoria returned to work and did not mourn it very much.